Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, I walk around the neighborhood, feeling blessed.
Alrighty. I think at the end of the rolled oats answers video, I said that I was going to do this tomorrow. I'm sorry. It was yesterday when you were going to do this. You probably saw it on the lesson plan page and on Google Classroom anyway. So sorry about that mix up in what I said. I clicked the stop button and blah, blah, blah. I didn't want to go back and redo the whole thing. So I lied to you. My bad. All right. So first part of this study guide is finding volume of cylinders and surface area of cylinders. And so the basic formula for all prisms is to take the area of the base times the height. And while the cylinder is not a prism, it has the same qualities. It's got congruent bases that are parallel to each other, two of them, and they're separated by a lateral face, which is a rectangle, and it doesn't look like it's a rectangle until this is a label on a can that you peel off and you lay it down flat on a table. It is absolutely a rectangle. So we're going to take that basic formula, but we have to interject the formula for finding the area of a circle. Since we have to find the area of the base, that would be pi times the radius squared, or radius squared times pi, however, whatever order you want to put that in. So I don't really want to go through and do each one of these. I feel like you've got your calculator, you've got the formula there. I'll just do a random one. Maybe I'll do number 3 because this one doesn't specifically give you the radius yet. So remembering we need to find the radius for our area of the circle. So volume is going to be equal to pi times the radius squared times the height. And so in this case, if the diameter is 10, the radius must be 5. So it's going to become 5 times 5 is 25. So we'll multiply 25 times pi, and then the height was also 5. So this eventually becomes 125 times pi. Remembering that when you're multiplying numbers together, that's 25 times pi times 5 again, you can use commutative property and do all the number parts first, and then multiply times pi at the end. So 125 times pi is 392.69, which I rounded up to 0.7. If you had taken 125 times 3.14, you would have gotten 392.5. So if you're in the 392 range, you're doing it right. And so that's one of those things where, you know, you're going to have multiple choice on the test that you're going to take today. Or if you choose to take it next week, whenever you choose to take it, as long as you take it before next Wednesday, then you know you're going to know that if there's only one of them that's going to be right there in the ballpark. It's not like I'm going to give you a 392.5 as one answer and a 392.7 as the other answer, and you've got to choose which one. It's going to be pretty obvious what the answer is. So feel free to either use the pi button or use 3.14. Doesn't make any difference to me. This is a nice one because it already gave you the area of the base. So volume times the area of the base times the height. This is probably a, well, that's a cylinder, isn't it? If it was like a pentagonal prism or a hexagonal prism, then they'd probably give you the area of the base, and then you just multiply it times the height to give you 200 cubic centimeters. As far as surface area goes, this is a little more complicated. I honestly, I think whenever you're talking about surface area of a cylinder, you've got this represents the distance that goes around this. So this would be like the circumference of your cylinder, and this would be like the height of your cylinder. And then you need to know what the radius is so you can find the area of each one of those parts. And in this case, the radius is 6, which means the diameter is going to be 12, which is going to be necessary for finding this measurement here. So I'll go ahead and do this one, and if you guys send me an email, want me to work out either of these two, because you just can't figure out how to get the answer, then go ahead and do that. But just watch what I do here, and hopefully you'll be able to see any mistakes that you might have made here or here. So the diameter is going to be 12 centimeters, now that we know that. All right, so let's start with the area of the two circles. So we know that the radius is 6, so that's going to be pi times the radius squared, is going to end up being 36 times pi. And what is 36 times pi? That ends up being about 113.1. So we've got two circles. So I'm going to call that 226.2. 226.2. And that would be square centimeters. So we've now taken care of the area of each one of those circles, the two of them combined. Now we know that the height is 10, but we've got to figure out what the circumference is. And so that's where the diameter comes into play. The circumference of this circle is going to be pi times the diameter, so it's going to be pi times 12. And what is pi times 12? It is, let's round that up to 37.7. So we're going to take 37.7 and then multiply that times 10, which is going to be 377.0. So when you add these two together, take the rectangular portion in here, which is 377 square centimeters, plus the area of the two circles, you get 603.2 square centimeters. Okay, so I just, rather than trying to memorize these formulas, I just try and visualize what the net of the cylinder would look like. Two circular bases, one rectangular lateral face that goes around, and just remember that one of the dimensions of that rectangular face, since it goes around the cylinder, is the circumference of the circle. Feel free to pause and go and make sure, see where you, maybe your work was a little bit different than what I did there. And once again, if you just cannot figure out where your mistake was, shoot me an email and I'll do my best to explain it. All right, on to the back side for our pyramids and cones. We are not going to find surface area of these. It's not a lot of fun. There's a formula for it that you can follow, but it's not fun. Let high school take care of that for you. In this case, it's actually pretty simple. Base area times the height. Doesn't matter if it's a cone or a pyramid. The area of the base, whatever that base is, use the area formula for it, multiply times the height, and then take 1/3 of that, because these are not prisms and cylinders. They're pyramids and cones, which are exactly 1/3 the volume of their respective prisms and cylinders with the same height and the same area of the base. So with that being the case, this is what we get here. These are cones. So volume is equal to 1/3 times pi r squared, since that's going to be the area of the base, times the height. So for this one, we would take 4 and square it. So this is going to be 16 times pi times 10. And 1/3, it's too bad 16 and 10 aren't multiples of 3, because that would make things a lot easier. I'm just going to go ahead and multiply these together. 16 times 10 is 160. So what is 160 times pi? It is 502.65. Now I'm going to divide that by 3 because it is a cone. It is not a cylinder. And that's how you get your 167 rounded up to 0.6. Okay, so that's in general the process you use for all of them. In this case, you'd have to take the radius. So the radius would be 6, and then plug it in there and go through the process. And you can convert some of these to decimal numbers, I guess. Not a lot of fun dealing with these fractions. You can see that's what I did. So 6.333333, square that number, and then go through the process. Same formula applies for the pyramids, but you might have different bases for your pyramids. The cones always have a circular base. So we have to determine what is the base. In this case, it's a square. So you're just going to take whatever the side length squared is and then multiply it times the height. In this case, it's a triangle. So we're going to take the volume is going to be equal to 1/2 times base times height. That's the area of the base of this triangle, which happens to be 4 by 6. So it's going to be 12. And then you multiply that times 10.5. And that's how you get your 42 cubic feet there. And in this case, its volume is going to be equal to base times height, because that's a rectangle or a parallelogram, but I'm assuming it's a rectangle, and then multiply it times the height. So 48 times 5. Oh, and then I forgot. You've got to, don't forget to take 1/3 of that, right? And then take 1/3 of this as well, because they are pyramids, not prisms. All right. Hopefully you've been staying up on all of this. This is not the easiest test, but if you know these basic formulas and you've been going through and doing the homework and doing the activities, you shouldn't have too much trouble with it. All right, so good luck on everything. And once again, I know some of you are leaving town and maybe you're not able to get, or maybe you don't want to start the test. You want to wait till after Memorial Day weekend. That's totally okay as long as you get this done by next Wednesday. Okay, so if you want to do it next Tuesday or next Wednesday, that's fine. Personally, I would get it out of the way as soon as I can. If you know all the material, just take care of it, get it done, and you are done with math for the rest of the year. All right, take care.
Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, I walk around the neighborhood.